All right, gentlemen, here we go. Kicking off week 2 of the global lockdown. Ole, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Good. It's the 8th day of quarantine now, and it's quite bizarre. Do you know, when I listen to the conversations we have, my sweetheart and Kim and my daughter Emilou, it's like, like, yeah, but can we go there? Or to the supermarket? Yeah, but we need to go one and one, and also look like you don't know the other one because you're only allowed in one at a time. You're not allowed to go in as a family. So we sort of diving inside the supermarket, not wanting to come back home because that's the only place we can go. The girl in the teller says, "Oh, please keep the receipt because if you get stopped in the street, the police will check the receipt so that you're not driving around with old grocery." Um,
Wow.
Yesterday, Sunday, it was like a ghost town. I mean, there was nothing moving where we live, like one car per 30 minutes or something. So it's very surreal. Surreal is the name.
Yeah. And Ole, we're joined as usual by Cody Snodgres. You know, people who are watching us for the first time, we've got a lot of new viewers on Crowdsource the Truth. People who are watching for the first time might not realize that every Monday we're doing a show, usually with the three of us, certainly Ole, you and I, and many other guests. It's available to sponsors on patreon.com/lightonconspiracies, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. For people who aren't familiar with Cody, he's an Iraq war veteran. He was a contractor to the military, and he's been involved in numerous black ops. He has now found his way towards the light, and he's written a book that people can purchase on Ole's website, lightonconspiracies.com. The book is called Choosing the Light, and it reveals the dark secrets of the Oklahoma City bombing. Cody, what are you hearing from your military contacts about this ongoing coronavirus pandemic?
Well, we have several mutually convergent sources of good intelligence. They're firsthand. Some of them I talked to one person that was active duty at the U.S. Space Command Center at Shriver Air Force Base, and we have some other secondary intelligence from Marine Corps generals and so forth. And I figure we'll get to that here in a little bit, later on in the show. We also have, some intelligence from what's going on right around this area here. For instance, we're just west of Colorado Springs, Colorado. There's a lot of military there. And so the state police have been ordered to have bug out bags ready, state highway patrol officers.
What does that mean?
We talked to one of those directly. And then the Teller County Sheriff's Office have been told to stand down and not make a bunch of arrests unless it's an act of violence. And so also the city police have been told to kind of stand down. We think that this may be a prelude to some type of a lockdown, shutdown, possibly a FEMA or UN type of action. Because you got to remember here, this is one of the big military areas in the country. We have Pueblo Depot, which is they have mustard gas and a lot of chemicals like VX, and a big weapons depot storage just north of there. Another 30, 45 minutes on the highway is all the stuff in Colorado. The 4th Infantry Division, the 10th Mountain Division, Space Command Center, Peterson Field Air Force Base, Cheyenne Mountain, and also the U.S. Air Force Academy. And then up north, another hour up north, is the Denver International Airport and Buckley Air Force Base. And underneath that is, of course, the CIA's domestic counterterrorism unit that was moved from Langley, Virginia, just after the Patriot Act was passed. So I got some good intel, and we'll cover all that here in a little while.
Wow. Yeah, people are going to want to hear that for sure. So, Ole, you were telling us about some pretty dramatic changes to day-to-day life. I mean, everybody's experiencing this around the country. I've been doing just some casual strolls around New York City. Now, there's been a debate going on, almost a battle between the virtually incompetent mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, and the Tony Montana-like governor of New York. That's Andrew Cuomo. The mayor has wanted for several days a total lockdown in New York, much like you're experiencing there in Spain, Ole. But the governor has been saying no. Now, the interesting thing that I've been observing, the governor said that the mayor doesn't have the power to order a citywide lockdown. But what he does seem to have the power to do is to reduce police patrols, because there seems to be virtually no patrol officers walking around compared to the normal days in New York City. And what this has done, in my observation, is that it's caused the sizable homeless population of New York City to become not only desperate as they are due to the lack of people around giving them food and money, the lack of businesses that are open where they can obtain food, but they're out in droves. There's no police. There's no other people. So they become emboldened, and I think they're a danger to law-abiding citizens. And without the cops, the city has become substantially more dangerous than it would be under normal times. What's the police presence like there in Spain under lockdown, Ole?
I can only say what I see out of my window, but I know that this morning, Kim and my daughter went to the local supermarket pretending they didn't know each other, and you had to stand with 3 feet in minimum between each other. You're not allowed to touch, and so my daughter was asked. She was standing behind Kim, and she was asking for some change. So Kim just gave it to her, and there were 2 police officers inside the supermarket that observed them, and just really stared at them for a long time. And so it's. I get some very uneasy feelings because I was in Iran during the war in 84, 85, as a private person, traveler. But I saw the whole lockdown on society where they had this incredible grip of fear. And in Iran, it was the so-called Pastaran, the Revolutionary Guards, that were driving around in Toyota pickups, green colored, and was just like standing parked, observing, or driving slowly around. And now here we have, they look very similar. I even think they're Toyota pickups here, but they're called Protección Civil, civilian protection. But the same behavior of people inside, with uniforms. They're there for my protection, I'm being told, but I get this, whoa, almost like post-traumatic stress syndrome reaction, like, whoa, yeah. I do not like this at all.
Sure.
But it's very strange at the same time because we don't know anything, it's so incredible how obedient we are, myself included. We're told, go inside, stay inside, and we just do it, Yeah. And they say, oh, but the military we get the news through the TV. Military is now in charge in Spain. I haven't seen anyone. And the only thing you see is like a single police car here and there. And yet we obey. And it's really interesting how easily, if this is the New World Order being rolled out, which, there's a lot of signs in a very, very negative way. Yeah. It just ticks all the boxes, and we just bend over and said, go for it, through the scare of a virus that, according to the intel I get, I just hear about empty hospitals, no queues outside, no panic, but they have like field hospitals with military stuff in Sweden and other countries outside the main cities, but nothing going on in the cities. So what is it we're seeing here? There's this uneasy gathering of people with guns and uniforms for what? And also, how do you find a virus with guns? You do not. There's also these reports about 20,000 U.S. military soldiers that have been deployed to different countries here in NATO countries. But it's like, is that a clever way? If there's a virus, should you then bring in people from abroad, like 20,000 people that could be infected or carry the infection? I don't believe the official narrative at all when it comes to the virus. And for me, I would be happy to go to China, Shanghai, wherever without a face mask. That is not my concern. But how it's being used, that is very, very... I do not like that at all. The way that this is just shutting down everything. Absolutely everything is shut down here. The only thing you're allowed to do is go to the shop for food. Tobacco is also open. I'm sure you will like that. And then you're allowed to walk your dog. But you have to prove that it's your dog, because like people are starting to lend the dogs to their neighbors or rent them out.
Oh, wow.
So... yeah, it's like
prove
ridiculous.
It's your dog. I mean, geez, unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. And it's like when Kim was really rebellious this morning and said, I'm going to go for a drive. I'm just going to drive a few miles down the road and back again, being really like this. And how can that be a rebellious act? It's like so bizarre. It's so bizarre.
But you seem to be in good spirits, Ole. You're holding up. You and the family have been at least enjoying the time together, it would seem.
Yeah, but listen, Jason, this is a piece of cake for someone like myself. I mean, Cody, we've been living this for so many years on the threat, and now it's suddenly, this is a very comfortable so-called threat. We live in a beautiful place. I'm with the people I love. It is a bit like being in a prison, but my God, it's such a luxury prison if you compare. So,
gilded cage, as it were.
Say again, please.
A gilded cage, as it were. I mean, certainly it's not as bad as being in a filthy prison where you're totally under somebody else's control. But, I think Kim would like to drive. People would like to go out. It would be nice if restaurants were open, if the economy wasn't totally stalled. We've got a question coming from the comments, guys. Marty wants to ask Cody if he's familiar with Patrick Berge's book on Clear Force, and if it has anything to do with this. I interviewed Patrick Berge several months ago, and then he was descended upon by people who I believe are social engineers trying to manipulate his story. Are you familiar with Patrick Berge at all, Cody?
No, sir, I am not.
Got it. Okay, so we can't really answer that question. So just real quick, along the lines of what you were saying, Ole, they did announce that they were going to be building triage hospitals in New York City. That's the latest news here in the United States, is that New York has become the epicenter for coronavirus, third largest outbreak after Wuhan City, China, and Italy. However, I've been going around the city all week last week. I've been to the 3 largest hospitals in the city, and there are absolutely no indicators of any unusual activity there. In fact, they seem to have less activity than I would expect at a major hospital in New York City. I also went to check out the Javits Center on Saturday because I saw a press conference where a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers general named Todd Semonite, said that they were going to be starting immediately to build this hospital inside the Jacob Javits Convention Center. On my walk there, I happened to pass this parking lot that's dedicated to the New York City Fire Department's EMS service, ambulances. People can see how many ambulances are on the street there parked. I think there was 10 or 12, kind of a lot of ambulances. And just by chance, there happened to be a postman delivering mail at that time. I always like to ask questions of post office workers because they know the neighborhoods very well. The guy said that this was more ambulances than he usually sees there, but it's not unexpected to see ambulances there because, as he pointed out, this is a parking lot for ambulances. But, for me, the fact that they're all there, parked with no drivers in them, doesn't seem to indicate that there is a pandemic in the city where one person per hour is dying of coronavirus. I would imagine these FDNY ambulances would be racing around the city if we had this totally intense, health crisis. The other thing I noticed, and this is what I want to ask Cody about. So right after this, I walked over all the way to the west side to the Jacob Javits Convention Center, which is a very traditional convention center that you would see in a city, large open spaces that I guess they're ostensibly planning to convert into okay, so Lionel says it's being fitted this morning, so I'll head over there. But certainly on Saturday, there was no indication whatsoever of any activity at all. I know Lionel tends to sit in his apartment and is a little more than a head in front of a webcam. I'll walk over there and verify what's going on. Cody, what would you expect to see with regard to the Army Corps of Engineers converting a civilian building into a hospital? Don't you think there'd be people scouting that location, or was Saturday just too soon?
Well, the Army Corps of Engineers would no doubt do a preliminary evaluation of the site to determine if it had the proper, plumbing, electrical. They got to have so much power to run ventilators and so forth. So they do that, and then if they did choose a particular site, a vacant building, for instance, then they would convert the pre-existing civilian structure to accommodate either military and or civilian triage equipment and ventilators and all the stuff they need. So the Army Corps of Engineers would no doubt have a team in there once they pick the site, and then start remodeling it or arranging it so that it could accept civilian casualties. They may be doing it for military stuff too. They may be making a place to transport bodies. We don't know, but there would be activity, and there would be signs there of them converting that civilian structure over to a medical or a military use.
That's what I thought. Sorry, real quick, Ole, but if that announcement was made by a general to the nation on a Saturday, I mean, the Army Corps of Engineers, they don't work like by a regular schedule. You would think if there is a threat to national security, those guys would be in there, Saturday or Sunday at 2:00 in the morning, or you would think they would rush there. But when I went there, the local police that were traffic police around the area had no indication that anything would be going on. I spoke to some civilian construction workers who were just working on the site. The Javits Center had some construction going on separate from this. They didn't know anything about it. Are you surprised that there would be a press conference announcing this before the local authorities and the people managing the site would be made aware of it, or is that pretty standard?
No, the civilians could have, the governor, whoever, the mayor, they could have said, we contacted the Army Corps of Engineers and we're going to do this and that. And then it may take the Army Corps of Engineers to get their equipment ready and get it all transported up there. So a delay time of some type is, that's feasible. And, the civilians will generally try to calm the population because there's a lot of panic and a lot of fear associated with this virus. And so they could jump the gun a little bit and make an announcement like that, betting on the come, so to speak, betting on what's going to happen or what's been promised to happen. It's like these checks, Trump and them are going to put out $1,200 to people of a certain income bracket. And they do it, and they say that to calm everybody. But the actual checks or the actual equipment may not come for months later due to bureaucratic red tape and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I think that might be what's happening. Ole, what do you want to say to everybody before we get ready to transition over to the Patreon and Subscribe Star segment of the show?
I just want to say we really have to question everything at this point because it's pointing in so many different directions. So it's very hard to know what is what. But now, according to official sources that are in major newspapers in Italy and also from England, they now say that the number of deaths that was not to people that were already sick or in their 90s or 80s or whatever, or very, very young, is down to 2 now in total. So, and that's the official number. So it's like from 2 dead, confirmed 2 dead, to closing down a whole country. You have to ask yourself, what is going on here? Because also what you're describing, it doesn't make any sense. There should be lots of activity and panic in the streets, and sick people coughing, dead bodies lying in the pavements and stuff. Like to justify something like we're being told. But what I get from all over the place is it's quiet. Everywhere it's quiet. There's nothing going on. No one is getting sick. It's only through the screen that we're being fed these numbers that now, 300, 400,000, 3 million. It's always 33, by the way.
Yeah.
And so 433, these are the two numbers that keep again and again and again and again and again and again and again. What are the chances? So I think the real danger here is fear, and how they use fear to lock us down. That is the real virus.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely, Ole. And it's also an imminent danger to everyone right now, whereas the virus seems to be much less so. We've got Elaine in the comments saying that the cashless society and the New World Order are rolling out. I did notice a sort of improvised sign at the donut shop where I was interviewing the clerk the other day that said no cash accepted. They had just made that policy because I presume they don't want this young woman, the coronavirus, but also she's down there in the subway station. If she has a lot of cash at the donut place, they're going to rob her. If it's all just credit card payments, there's nothing that, marauders can take from her. So I'm sure neither of you guys are surprised that the photograph featured in this article in the New York Post about what's going on at the Javits Center happens to show a member of the 369th, which seems like somehow an encoded 33 to me, the 369th Sustainment Brigade of the 53rd Troop Command. So they seem to see one Army guy around the Javits Center when they went there. I didn't see any, but we'll get into this and more. Very interested to hear this intel coming from Cody's sources in just under 10 minutes when we continue the show on patreon.com/lightonconspiracies, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I'll see you guys over there. Thanks everybody for watching.